Hey gang, school massacres. We tend to think school massacres are things that happen in our time lately, an invention of the present. But really, they happened a long time ago, and one of the two worst in the country happened here at this location back in 1927. I'm in Bath, Michigan, which is basically right in the center of the state. We're about 10 miles northeast of Lansing. And it is here back then that a madman, a disgruntled person who lived here, chose to try to murder all the children here, in addition to the citizens, to take out his blame. His name was Andrew Kehoe. So let's take a walk here. This park now is a memorial. As I said, this was the place where it happened. This is the exact grounds. And it was horrific. It happened back in the days of the headlines of Lindbergh's transatlantic flight. And here in this little town, this little farming town of good people, this unbelievable tragedy happened. It all started from before in 1922, after years of debate. The Bath Township voters here approved the creation of what was called the Bath Consolidated School District. And if you go back in time, you know, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, the schools were all little one-room little schoolhouses. And this was one of the early consolidations from all the nearby little towns. And basically, though, all the landowners here would have to pay higher taxes to pay for it. And this Kehoe guy I'm talking about, he was the chief antagonist against paying these higher taxes. He had a lot of issues. Now, this cupola that you see here, what's interesting is this is the only thing left from the actual schoolhouse. And it actually sits in almost the exact position that it sat above, way up high, when the schoolhouse was built. It was originally built. Bring all these kids together. And this was saved. And if you look down here at the bricks very carefully, you will see very subtle the names of all the kids that were killed. Many kids were killed. And also the superintendent, teachers, and some civilians, the people from the village. It was catastrophe that was just unimaginable. Unimaginable. This Kehoe guy was the 55-year-old school board treasurer. And the other thing I didn't mention was that he had lost in the election, a recent election, to be the township clerk, and that really angered him. And he had a lot of other problems, which we're going to talk about. This stone you see here is listing the names, the memory of those who perished. You can see here there were three. There's Emery Hayek, Superintendent Blanche Hart, who was a teacher, and Miss Hazel Weatherby, who was also a teacher. And then we have down on the bottom, we have the names of two of the citizens that perished, Nelson McFerrin and Glenn O. Smith. And then of course we have the names of all the children who died. So we're going to go to the cemetery now, and we're going to visit some of the graves. There's a cemetery just south here in town where many of the kids are buried, but the kids are buried all over the place in other towns and villages. So we're just going to visit a few of them here, and I'm going to tell you the story, this terrible story. Okay, let's head over there. We are at the Bath Cemetery now, and I think its formal name is the Pleasant Hill Cemetery. And let's talk about this story. So this Kehoe guy, Andrew Kehoe, what a piece of work he was. He came from a family of 13 children. Big family. And as he was growing up, there didn't seem to be any signs of anything bad. He went to high school like everybody else, and after that he graduated and went to study electrical engineering at Michigan State College, which is now Michigan State University. And then he ended up moving after that to St. Louis to be an electrician. Well, to study, I think he was still studying. Something happened to him there. I don't know. Nobody knows if it was a jolt to the head, a fall, or was it perhaps, did he get zapped? But something happened to him because he was in a coma for 2 weeks. And when he woke up, some say he was never the same. He moved back here to Bath to live with his parents. His his mom died, so his dad remarried. The woman that he married was only 3 years older than Andrew Kehoe. And there was friction right from the start. They hated each other. Now, one thing we can talk about is that his personality was, he had a lot of traits of what would amount to a psychopath based on the charts. And one was he was very organized, he was very fastidious. I'm not saying if you're fastidious or organized you're a psychopath, because I am. Maybe I'm a psychopath, but when you add the other stuff up, he would get angry fast. He was argumentative. And it was just getting worse and worse. Now, what happened was his stepmother was lighting a petroleum-based stove. It was oil or gas. And when she went to light it, it exploded in her face. And Kehoe was standing right there, and he had a bucket of water ready, apparently, and he threw it on her, which is the last thing you want to do, because with those type of products, all the water does is it just spreads the fire. You have to use powder or a fire extinguisher to get those out, as you may know. So she was dead standing. Well, I think she died maybe the next day, but she was done. One sign is he ran over to the neighbor. I don't even know if he ran. And he asked for help. And he said, "Oh, my stepmom has a burn." Didn't say she was in major trouble. But he said that they should call a priest. So many of the neighbors think that he did it. He was responsible for that. So that's kind of the first sign of trouble. So he goes off after that. I think it was only a year later. And he marries a woman named Nellie. And they settle down into Nellie's, I think it was Nellie's uncle had a farm here just outside of town. And they got a mortgage from the uncle, and they moved onto the farm. It was like 80 acres. And they say that, well, they say, you ever see the movie Green Acres with Oliver? He would go in the fields with his suit and tie and like work, and if you got a little dirt on there, he would go in and change his shirt. I mean, just all kinds of strange behavior, right? And working the farm, and he got involved. He's still seething though on this whole tax issue, because the school raised the taxes a lot for all the individual people, and he was fixated on it. And to try to do something about it, he joined the school board, and he was the treasurer. And maybe he thought from doing that he could kind of control the situation better, which did not turn out to be the case, because he would just argue and fight. And particularly with the superintendent, they would really go at it. And I guess Kehoe was running the meetings because whenever, which was a lot, he didn't get his way, he would just dismiss the meeting. Meeting dismissed. Now, one other thing to mention about Mr. Kehoe is he was the local dynamite dealer. That's right. He was the guy that bought and sold dynamite. Why would you need dynamite? Well, the way to clear the land back then was to use dynamite. You didn't want to move boulders or tree stumps with your horse, kill the horse, wreck the car. Cars were just coming out. Nobody had cars. So he was kind of the guy that would come out, you know, with the electrician and set the blasting cap and do all that stuff. He was kind of the expert. So they would rely on him to do that. Now, one of the things he was doing, though, is as he got madder and madder at the school board issue, he started to get seething anger against basically everybody here in Bath. And he was plotting what would be his revenge. Well, what he did was he kept buying more and more dynamite. And nobody knew he was stockpiling that dynamite secretly. Every day, practically, he would go to Lansing, 10 miles away here, southwest, and get more dynamite. Maybe 10, maybe 20 pounds every other day. And he was plotting something big. Well, it came to pass that his anger finally blew over. At approximately 8:45 a.m. on Wednesday, May 18th, he detonated firebombs in his house and his farm buildings. And people would find out later it was all pre-planned. Neighbors came running to help. And as they did, he was running around like an idiot, not doing much. And by the way, in town here, they were just getting electrical for the first time, so they had utility people here in town. And one of the utility workers was in the farmhouse looking if there were any survivors or any victims to get out. And lo and behold, he opens one of the drawers, and there's a whole bunch of dynamite, and he goes tearing out of there, and as soon as he got out the door, the whole place just blew up. Now, as all that's happening, Kehoe jumps in his truck, his Ford, and he's waving to the guys, "Hey guys, let's all go to the school. Come on with me. We should get out of here. Let's go to the school." So he heads to the school, and as he's going to the school, and by the way, it was obviously, let's go back to the school, the pandemonium, because you could hear in the distance at 8:45 a.m. the explosion, because of kind of simultaneous explosion, which could be heard from Lansing. Half the school blows up. Now you've got all the parents, you've got people running, everybody's got a kid in that school. So now he's, within 20 minutes, he's heading back to the school. And one of the guys that was helping at the school with getting survivors out from the rubble sees him coming towards the school, and he's waving. And the guy says later he could see the white of his teeth, both his upper and lower teeth. He basically quoted as saying that he saw that. It's like, what is this guy? This guy's strange. So basically, Kehoe goes to the school right in the middle of all the pandemonium. I mean, there's women, men, there's dead children. There's over 30 dead children. They're pulling out. There's a teacher they pulled out. She had a dead child in both arms. It was unbelievable. There was one woman trapped in there, a teacher, who was still alive. Her head was between two structural pieces of wood, and right looking straight at her was a child with his eyes open, and he was dead. And she was screaming, "Get me out of here." There's nothing she can do. There was a woman who picked up a whole slab of mortar and brick like a Superman. A man couldn't lift it, but the adrenaline, you can just imagine. You can just imagine. So what does he do? He comes running up with his truck, and you got to figure people are like, oh, he's coming to help. And the superintendent says, Hayek is his name, he says, hey, we need that truck. We can pull debris away. We're getting a rope and a fulcrum. And what does Kehoe do? Kehoe says, guys, come over here, come over here. He had rigged the truck with explosives and shrapnel, nails, pitchforks, any kind of metal. And as soon as they got close, Hayek goes, he just had a feeling. He goes, are you responsible for this? And with that, there was a struggle. One of the witnesses said there was a struggle for a gun, whether it's a rifle or a handgun, but Kehoe got the gun pointed into the truck and set off the explosives. It was a massive explosion. Massive. Killed 4 more people. In fact, it was the postmaster, a young guy. He got killed. He survived. He was already injured helping, and he got his leg blown off in that. There was a woman standing like 100 feet away holding a child, and she caught a piece of shrapnel right in the eye. She didn't even drop the child. Can you believe that? She lived the rest of her life with sight of only one eye. It was bad. So he set off that explosion, killed I think it was 4 guys right there, and then that was kind of the finality of the destruction. So to make a long story short, when they started piecing things together, one thing they found was, they said it was about 500 pounds of dynamite that went off. I'm sorry, 100 pounds of dynamite that went off. And they found another 500 pounds that didn't go off for some reason. It was rigged wrong. And if 500 pounds would have gone off, I mean, it would have leveled the whole block, half the town. Thank you for your service, sir. World War II. They went to the farm and they found that he had planned this well out in advance, because one thing he did is girded the trees, which means he killed the trees, cut the trees, put them back like fake in place, and the vines and stuff. He hobbled the horses, which means he tied their legs together, while the fire's going on, so kill all the horses. It's like apocalypse. Kill everything you can. We're going out hard. Which he did. They found a sign that he had made, and it was very carefully stenciled. And this was probably one of the creepiest parts. It said, "Criminals are made, not born." Criminals are made, not born. What does that tell you? It tells you that he blamed society for his problems, which is a common trait of a psychopath. They're not to blame for anything. It's all somebody else's fault. Here are we're into the area of the graves of the children. So let's pay our respects to a few. This beautiful statue of the little girl. This is Emma Nichols, her grave. You can see the date, May 18th, 1927. Fateful date. And I'll give you a little bit of information about each of the kids that I could find. Emma Amelia Nichols was 12 years old. She was the daughter of Henry and Amelia Nichols. When we see their grave here, Amelia died in 1971. They both died in 1971, and you know how that works. They were married in 1906, it says. When one dies, usually the other dies. Wow. And did they have enough heartbreak in their lives with this? There's a picture here that I will put that it's taken when she was younger with her sisters. She was about 6 years old. She's the one on the far right. Emma, rest in peace. And right over here we have a brother and sister that were killed. The Brahmins. We have Robert and Emily, whose nickname was Amelia. Let's talk about Robert and Emily. Emily was 11 years old. She was the daughter of Rudolph and Wanda. She liked to go to school and learned very rapidly. At age 11, Emily was in the 5th grade. She admired her teacher, Mrs. Blanche Hart. Blanche, by the way, was killed. She was one of the victims, along with Emily's brother, Robert, here. You see a little car for Robert. Robert was 12. He was in the 5th grade. He didn't like to go to school. He didn't want to go to school. He would rather have quit that spring and worked on the farm. He loved to be on the farm. We are going to walk to the street to pick up the story, and then we're going to visit a few graves up there, and then we're going to swing our way along here, visit more graves, and we're going to finish right over there by that tree. We're heading to 2 of 3 brothers that were all lost. 2 of 3 brothers. 3 brothers lost. Can you imagine the parents? This in front of us is the grave of Galen Lyle Hart, one of the 3 brothers that was killed. A little toy car there. Galen was the son of Octa and Shirley. He was 12 years old and in the 6th grade. He was very interested in farming and helped his father much by running the tractor and milking the cows. He liked horses and sheep and especially enjoyed looking after those little lambs. And when he was with his parents, sometimes they'd let him drive the car, and that was his favorite thing to do with his folks, drive that car. One of the other brothers is right over there. There's another little car, little matchbox type car, marking the grave for Stanley, second brother of the Hart family that was lost in the disaster. Stanley Horace Hart was 12 years old, and he was in the 6th grade. He was quiet. He usually kept to himself. Although he was small for his age, he competed well with children much larger than himself. We're going to start walking to the back now and visit some more graves as we go. Let's go this way. Where this white cross is, adjacent is the grave of Nelson Robert McFerrin. Nelson was 75 years old when he died in the disaster. He's one of the adult victims. That's his grave right here. It says father, 1852 to 1927. Well, Nelson was the son of John and Caroline McFerrin. He was a farmer. He had married Ada Saxton in March of 1883 and was the father of Floyd, Harry, and Esther Smith. That's her maiden name after she got married. He was not injured in the bombing, which destroyed the school. Remember I was talking about the men that came over? He was one of those men. He was killed along with his son-in-law, the postmaster I was talking about. His name was Glenn Smith. I think it was Glenn O. Smith. School superintendent Emery Hayek, and of course the bomber Andrew Kehoe. There might have been one other person killed, but Nelson is a hero. He's a hero. Let's walk over this way. So many kids, it's impossible to really do it in one episode. We'll try to get to as many as we can. This is Floyd E. Burnett, who was killed in the disaster. It says killed in the Bath School explosion. Floyd was the son of George A. and Almeda E. He was 11. He was in the 6th grade. And although he was a great student, his real love was baseball, and it was said that he was one of the best players of his age. He was a good worker at home. His chores included helping with the milking of the cows. He was a good boy. We continue this way. And next we are going to visit the grave of a little boy named Russell Chapman. Russell was only 8 years old. He was the son of Clarence and Bertha, and I do see their graves here. I think this is his brother, who died young also, Earl W. Yeah, I'm going to reach over here. Clarence died in 1951 and Bertha died in 56. And there it is, 1927, fateful year. He loved school. He loved helping on the farm, especially when he could harness the horses by himself. He had finally learned, and drag for his father. He was always mischievous and seemed to have a good time with everybody. He was another good boy. We have another child over here. You see another car. Another little car for a young boy who died way too early. This is the grave of Ralph Cushman. And he is here, what looks like with his parents, Nellie and Albert. Ralph was the son of Albert and Nellie. He was 7 years old and in the 3rd grade. He did very, very well in school, except in numbers. A loyal friend, he wanted to stay in the 2nd grade because one of his friends did not pass. He loved to play baseball, morning, day, and night. He even played that fateful morning before going to school. The last thing he said to his mother was, "Goodbye, Mama, I'll be good." He was one of the last children found in the school ruins. So sad. Right next to him here is Richard Dibble. And I don't see his parents, but let's talk about him. Richard Dibble Richardson was 12 years old. He was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Guy Richardson. He liked machinery and could run the tractor. He was quite a businessman. He saved up $32 and bought a Holstein calf from his father. After raising it, he was selling it back to him for $100. His father gave him an acre of land in which he planted beans. It's so sad that he was killed in the disaster. What a future he would have had. A classmate of his said that a radiator had fallen on his head, fracturing his skull. He had died instantly. Let's walk to the grave of the little brother, the heart brother, the final of the three. Right here, beautiful flowers. I believe this is his grave here. I'm going to come around this way. Yes, that's LeVere. LeVere Robert Hart was only 9 years old. The third brother. He loved to draw, and he would draw pictures and trade them to other children for marbles and other playthings. He loved to draw funnies when he grew up. He was a cartoonist. He also loved Sunday school, and he was always dressed and ready to go. You couldn't keep him down. No way. Well, rest in peace, kids. Rest in peace. The footnote to the story here, with all the sadness, is that they did find Kehoe's wife eventually. Her skeleton was found out back in a cart. And next to her was a family strongbox, and it was a macabre scene. There was like silverware in there and all their valuables. Her skull was cracked. Whether Kehoe killed her or not, no one knows. Days later, a package was received from Kehoe. Of course, after it was all, he was dead, everybody, all the damage was done, and it came in a dynamite box. One of his dynamite boxes. It was sent to the accountant of the school. Of course, they thought it was booby-trapped, and they brought it to the police station, and they brought it in a special area. They opened it gingerly, and inside was an accounting box with all the books. And it said, there was a note on top, it said, "The accounts are revised. Sorry, I was 2 cents off." Well, there is one bright note as we close this video. There is one bright note that when 50 years after this happened, I mean, you have to imagine those high school students, there was no graduation diploma. everything was called off. But 50 years later, they had a ceremony here, and those students all got their diploma. And I'm sure they toasted. They were all elderly, but they got their diplomas. So a class act with this town. It's a beautiful place here. I'd recommend you come here if you're anywhere in Michigan, I guess, passing through. It's right off the interstate. But such a sad story, and I just wish everybody, all the kids and the heroes, rest in peace. So long, everybody. Kind of a sad one today. Stay safe.